Peter Junknowitz has been a keeper's worst nightmare this NBN Soccer League season. In 15 games, he's bagged an astounding 28 goals, including 3 hat-tricks. But the modest Edgeworth striker credits his fellow Eagles.
I'd love to be able to take the credit for myself, but I can't. Obviously, you have to have some ability to finish the opportunities, but the opportunities must come first.
The season, though, is taking a toll on the former NSL player. For the last few weeks, he's been doing rehabilitation work to combat an injured ankle. This, with 3 games to go, Highfield striker Tony Majorowski also vying for the title of top goal scorer, and Peter being too shy of scoring 30 goals in the regular season, a first since 1975.
I didn't know that, and I haven't really thought about that at all. Each game I try to go with the same aim, and that's to score every goal-scoring opportunity that comes along.
Strangely enough, the 22-year-old doesn't feel like he's under any pressure, except that is for when his girlfriend, parents and sister are in the crowd.
Yeah, every time they come to the game, I don't seem to be able to score. So I put a bit of not a ban, they just can't tell me whether or not they're going to the game.
The Eagles face Cessnock on Sunday. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
The Yamaguchi Ube junior soccer team arrived in Newcastle this afternoon hungry, literally and figuratively speaking. Their run on to South Wallsend Soccer Park to face South Wallsend Public School, the culmination of an epic 10,000-kilometre overnight journey. The boys, aged between 10 and 12, left Newcastle's sister city of Ube last night and after 9 hours flying via Korea and Sydney, got down to the purpose of their 4-day visit. While it's an adventure, the trip's also a cultural experience for them and their families.
I'm not sure whether you'd send your 11 and 12-year-old 10,000 miles to play a couple of soccer games, but that's what it's about.
On field, it was the host kicking goals, with the Yamaguchi Ube coach conceding maybe the journey had taken its toll.
They
didn't have much time to warming up, but it's good experience for them.
Despite having the half-time lead in Game 1, South Wallsend had respect for their opponents.
I thought we played pretty well. We passed it round. They're good players, but we can beat them.
For tour organisers, the Ube Sister City Committee, the visit fits into a bigger overall game with Ube Industries, a long-term customer of Hunter coal producer Coal and Allied.
There is real economic benefit for us to know the young people and the adults and families in Ube.
Gary Blair, NBN News. Newcastle University's Science and Engineering Challenge got off the ground at Muswellbrook Sports Centre with an impromptu introduction to aviation. Airships were just part of the opportunity to broaden the students' awareness of science, engineering and allowed some lateral thinking. 200 junior high school students took part in the day's activities. Maitland Art Gallery is showcasing their efforts entered in the annual Secondary Student Art Prize. Selected works from Maitland, Cessnock, Kurri Kurri, Dungog and Raymond Terrace schools are entered in the prize. The winners will be announced at the gallery on Sunday afternoon.
Yesterday, the 50-year-old lung cancer patient broke her silence, claiming she was bashed and raped at the Mater Hospital in June while undergoing chemotherapy. The hospital board today expressed its deep distress and embarrassment. However, 6 weeks on, claims it's still awaiting the results of a forensic investigation conducted by police.
It's just of great importance to us, to the lady, to the community, to know precisely what did happen that night.
The woman has accused the hospital of removing vital evidence, but the hospital's chairman says staff cooperated fully with police, handing over bedclothes before the room was cleaned.
They came in during the night and cleaned up the scene.
One of the many questions which remains unanswered is why the woman's hospital identification band was removed and has still not been found. While 2 internal inquiries continue, the hospital says it's beefed up security and done all it possibly could to help the woman, including an offer of counselling.
I think the people of Newcastle can be confident that we've done all within our power to protect them from such animals in our society.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Gold Coast surfer Andrew Lever says this wave was the ultimate thrill. It started at Snapper this morning and just kept going and going and going.
Mate, it's probably the longest wave I've ever ridden in Australia, and from what I know, probably the longest wave in the world.
It's a phenomenon rarely seen on the Gold Coast. Waves that last several minutes and cover a distance of up to 1 kilometre. Longer, if you believe those who should know. The long barrels are being attributed both to Mother Nature's swell and the Tweed Sand Bypass Project. Sand pumped from beaches at Fingal ends up here at Snapper Rocks and drifts north.
Former world champion Damien Hardiman went there and clocked himself. It was a 3-minute ride, and someone clocked Damon Harvey's ride as over 4 minutes.
Whatever the record, surfers couldn't be happier.
Mate, absolutely cooking. It doesn't get much better. The longest, best right-hander in the world, that's what I'm calling it. I just love it to death.
And the action is set to stay with us for at least the next few days if the swell continues. James Kelly, NBN News.
For about 40 rural fire service firefighters from around the state, it's not enough just to know how to put out fires. They're learning how to track a blaze back to its first spark.
It's important for arson awareness as well, but also for awareness for the organisation in prevention. In many cases we need to find out how fires are starting so that we can target community awareness programs and the like.
During the exercise, fires are lit and the investigators have to determine the cause and where it started. Uniform operating guidelines have been adopted to coordinate fire investigations throughout the state.
Basically just laying down the fact of the police are responsible for the investigation of fires on behalf of the coroner. The fire services will assist in providing information and expertise to allow them to carry out that role.
With predictions of a busy fire season ahead, the new investigators will be a welcome addition.
Well, already we've had over 500 fires across the northern part of New South Wales, so it has been necessary to bring in the statutory bushfire danger period. This has now occurred from Port Macquarie up to the Queensland border and as far out as Tamworth.
The danger period for the hunters expected to arrive around October. Eloise Gentle, NBN News. The Royal Australian Air Force is very pleased with the outcome of the Pitch Black training program.
Is our most important and our largest air defence exercise that we hold in Australia. It's been important for us to test our current and new capabilities in an operational environment.
Pitch Black aims to bring pilots as close to combat readiness as they can be in a training environment.
The exercise has both offensive and defensive tactics, and it's really a matter of honing the crew skill and the employment of those offensive and defensive tactics.
Both Australian and Singaporean pilots took part in the air battle, honing their skills towards future possible coalition deployments.
Interoperability has been one of the exercise aims, and we've been very pleased that we've been able to achieve that aim for Pitch Black.
2 teams were involved. The Defenders, based at Williamtown, an all-Australian team flying FA-18 Hornets, and an attack team made up of Singaporean and Australian pilots based at Amberley near Brisbane. Aircraft faced threats from the ground as well, from radar detection to mobile guided missile units lying in wait. In this battle, though, everyone gets to go home. Eloise Gentle, NBN News.
Having succumbed to a troublesome sternum injury last week, Tamana Tahu wasn't even named in the Knights lineup to meet the Dragons, but one look at him at training this morning gave the game away.
I had a bit of a test today with it, and it's not sore or nothing, so I'm really looking forward to Friday night.
Tahu's return comes at the expense of John Morris, whose cork calf sees him sidelined. Robbie O'Davis knows too well what it feels like to be a spectator, having missed the last 2 weeks with a groin injury. Now back at close to full fitness, he's confident the side will lift after Sunday's loss.
It's been talked about all week how we sort of give away them 19 points in the second half, and we're not going to make the same mistake again.
Coach Michael Hagan believes the team spirit, if anything, has gotten stronger and the Knights will need it. St George Illawarra has never lost in Newcastle since the joint venture.
They do play well against us here and probably down there, to be honest, so that they always generate good games, and I would expect them to come here full of confidence on the back of their last few games.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
While it's obvious Melinda Pavey is soon due to have what will be her second child, what's not is this 33-year-old small businesswoman's political connections and acumen. Last night she was selected from a field of 12 to fill a casual vacancy in the Legislative Council, following the death of National Party MLC Doug Moppet.
I'm very excited. I'm very grateful to the party for pre-selecting me. They obviously felt that I have what it takes to go into the Legislative Council and represent the interests of rural New South Wales, and I'm very proud to do so.
Melinda tasted political success when she last year engineered the election of Luke Hartsuker to the federal seat of Cowper, but her National Party connections go back a long, long way.
And I worked for Wendy Machin. She was only 28 when she was pre-selected.
Mrs Pavey will become an MLC in September.
My first priority will be to have the baby, which will happen in another 20 days or so and counting. And the swearing in process is probably about 40 days away. So we'll just see what happens, and hopefully the baby's on time.
It was Sammy McLeod's big win at the Sydney International 3-day event in May that saw her qualify for the World Equestrian Games in Spain in September.
I was very excited. I won it very convincingly and I was very happy with that performance.
She won the Sydney event on her 14-year-old mount, Frederick Hunter, who she'll be taking to England to train on the 17th of August. 12 Australians have been selected to spend 3 weeks training in England. Sammy's one of 2 from the Hunter region. Tasha Hammond is the other Hunter hopeful. 6 of the 12 will then be chosen to compete in Spain. Sammy's hoping she'll be selected for the World Championships.
It's definitely my dream. I've been knocking on the door a few times before, but I'm hoping this time I'll actually get a start.
She says the fitness of the horse will be a big factor and is busy preparing for the chance of a lifetime.
You have to train them very hard, or a specific training routine where they gallop every 4 days. So the most important thing I'm trying to do is just get him as sound and fit as possible and get him ready to fly out injury-free.
Sammy's leaving nothing to chance for what could be a pinnacle in her 10 years of competition. Eloise Gentle, NBN News.
It was the nucleus of the Newcastle United team stretching out a Blackbutt reserve today to open their pre-season fitness campaign. 10 members of the squad, though, were missing. They've either been on national representative duty or are still playing overseas and are scheduled to rejoin the side from next week. As the build-up begins, there's already a focus on the job ahead after Newcastle made last season's NSL playoffs.
Priority first is to get that top six and give ourselves a chance to obviously lift the cup.
And I believe we got unfinished business from last year because we came so close, 1 goal away from a grand final berth.
Roberts was even prepared to predict United will make it a season to remember.
And hopefully we'll be there for a grand final berth. Energy Australia Stadium, May 2003.
It's enthusiasm welcomed by coach Ian Crook, who's also impressed that the core of his side has taken their fitness seriously in the off-season.
The one thing that the boys have done by the looks of them is they've kept themselves in good shape. We gave them a program to go away with during the season, and they seem to have kept to that fairly rigidly.
United will spend 7 weeks preparing for the NSL kick-off. The team's first trial game is at Coffs Harbour in a fortnight, with match fitness to be put to the test during encounters with the Northern Spirit, Olympic Sharks and possibly Parramatta Power. Gary Blair, NBN News.
More familiar shores for Boyd Conrick today after 9 weeks on the French triathlon circuit, in which the 27-year-old proved Mr. Consistency. 2 seconds, 2 thirds and 2 fourths featured among his results, while there was even what the redhead athlete himself describes as an unexpected win.
Everything just fell into place. I sort of went there and I thought, if I can go top 5, I'll be fairly happy. And just on the day, I just felt really good and the conditions suited me.
3 finishes in particular were good enough to see Conrick qualify for the French Elite Championships, but instead it's the upcoming Australian season that beckons. His campaign last year was severely hampered by a dog attack. This time around he's hoping to snap at the heels of some of the top 10 place getters.
Yeah, if I can just remain injury-free this year, I think I'm going to have a pretty good season. I feel like I'm a lot more experienced, which counts for a lot, I think.
The season starts in November. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Over the years, the humble home has become a little smarter. This latest design is estimated to save a typical family around $300 a year in energy bills. While the concept is not new, the price is, starting from just under $90,000.
The attractiveness of this house is its price and the fact that we've been able to demonstrate that we can produce a 5-star house without being significantly different to what people are used to today.
The exhibition home is designed so the temperature will remain comfortable throughout summer and winter, no matter how hot or cold it gets outside. Specially designed water-saving shower heads help keep costs down, along with an innovative new hot water system.
The energy in the heated air is used to heat the water and subsequently reduce the energy use.
Energy efficiency is what new home buyers are looking for, and the Newcastle Master Builders Association says the homes are not only becoming cheaper to build, but cheaper to live in. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Sydney's Aaron Price won the WE Alexander 2 years ago and did his chances of another title no harm today, finishing at 3 under to take a one-shot lead going into the weekend rounds. But there's plenty of others eyeing the prize, including Charlestown's James Niddies and Belmont's Nick Flanagan. The 51st running of the prestigious amateur event continues tomorrow. To clubs of another kind, and the final round of the Tooheys Cup sees 4 teams jockeying for position in the top 5, with Cessnock, Raymond Terrace, Wests and the Blues all vying for the second chance semi. Wanderers host the Waratahs in a local rugby blockbuster this weekend, and while their spots in the semis are assured, Merewether Carlton, Singleton and Nelson Bay are still eyeing the last remaining berth. And while the top 4 has been decided in the NBN Soccer League going into the final round, Broadmeadow and Cessnock can still change places, the Hornets taking on second-placed Highfields in the match of the round. It's been a Darren Albert-like season for Mark Hughes, and the Knights are hoping this run-in with Paul Mellor hasn't ended it altogether. The Star Centre will have an arthroscope in Sydney tomorrow, but it's feared he has the same knee ligament injury which earlier this season claimed Adam McDougall. Robbie O'Davis and Matt Parsons also picked up injuries, while the team as a whole suffered from a badly bruised reputation.
Yeah, it was just one of those days where everything went wrong for us, and the boys, we sort of ended up on the wrong side of a very embarrassing scoreline.
The Knights quick to dismiss suggestions that the timing of an article in a Sydney newspaper yesterday had any effect.
At the end of the day, that wasn't any effect on us, and it wasn't effect on the last thing from our minds really.
The in-form Eagles, however, are on their minds, being the next stop for the 4th place side in what is still a difficult home stretch, but you get the impression the Knights will be out to prove a point this Saturday.
Can't come quick enough for us really. The boys are really keen to make amends for last week and can't wait for the game.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
It's not a new idea having an electric caddy to take the hard work out of lugging a bag of clubs. But just like a new model sports car, the Newcastle design buggy claims an edge, with more power and better suspension.
Similar models haven't got the manoeuvrability with the front wheel. The front wheel has also got suspension.
Businessman Greg Valentine heads a consortium of hunter investors who've backed 2 years of development, believing there's a growing market, given the country's ageing population and golf's popularity with retirees.
We're finding that more and more people, as they get older, need assistance to get around the golf course. Of course, this type of buggy, an electric buggy, certainly does provide a great deal of assistance, helps them to get up the hills.
The design will be launched at Merewether Golf Club tonight. It's hoped at least 1,000 buggies will be sold annually through agents across the country.
The Knights' weekly video session was more like the screening of a disaster movie today. Players forced to sit through the Sharks' opening 42-point blitz.
We watched the first half just to get it out of our system and leave it at that, mate.
Players also understandably keen to move on.
We've pretty much forgotten that, and we've all played football long enough to know that you get a kick in the bum every now and again, and we've certainly received that.
In fact, the only changes to the team this week are injury-related, with Kurt Gidley moved to fullback following another flare-up of Robbie O'Davis's groin injury. Sean Rudder's back at 5'8", with Neil Sweeney added to the 13 in the absence of Mark Hughes, while Ben Kennedy wasn't named but will be given until Friday to prove his fitness.
We probably would. I think he needs to get that strength and confidence back in his shoulder before we really expect him to play first grade at the level that we expect him to play at.
The club's billing Saturday night's clash as a return to the Newcastle-Manly battles of old, and if that didn't promise enough of a fight, champion boxer Costa Zoo will also be presented to the crowd. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Starting his NSL career with Newcastle in youth teams and then in the top grade side, Scott Thomas has always held Newcastle close to his heart, and now he's back in his hometown colours once again. Today the midfielder agreed to a 2-year deal.
It's an honour to come back and obviously to play here, as I'm a local lad and I've played here before when I was a lot younger.
Leaving 5 years ago for a stint with Adelaide, Thomas then enjoyed 2 seasons at Olympic. His last 2 years have been in Spirit colours, but celebrating his 28th birthday next week, the time was right to return.
I just wanted basically to put something back into the town. I think I'm at a good age to give something back to Newcastle, and you know I'm very passionate about the town.
And he's under no illusions how tough it will be to crack a starting spot. In fact, he's looking forward to it.
Every team you need competition, and I think it's good that there's competition there, and you got to work for your spot.
Meanwhile, a minor scare for Matt Bingley just days before the team leaves for a pre-season camp in Coffs Harbour. The captain has aggravated a groin problem that required surgery at the end of last season. Joel Griffiths, meanwhile, has returned from an overseas trial with a thigh strain.
Whitecaps dominated the coastal vista today as strong southerly winds of up to 60 kilometres an hour blasted the region. The wind whipping up the sea and forcing Newcastle Port Corporation to close the harbour to inward-bound vessels. The coal carrier Hanjin Madras was the only ship which ventured to sea, with several other bulk carriers delaying their departure. Despite its size, harbour watchers were given one last look at the Hanjin Madras's hatch covers as it struggled through the swell. In the port, the crew of HMS Nottingham were enjoying flat conditions. Then again, the duty watchers on the stricken destroyer haven't had much time to notice the weather, busy in recent days completing Phase 1 of the ammunition removal from the warship.
I'm pleased to say it's all gone according to plan, and the ammunition that was not at all involved in the damage to the ship has now been taken out of the ship.
Lieutenant Commander DL says crew morale is high as they now turn attention to Phase 2 of ammunition removal to unload Sea Dart missiles, including those submerged in a damaged forward compartment of the Nottingham.
And that will obviously dictate the final date of when the ship actually leaves Newcastle.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
There's no doubting that Les Smith means a lot to the Terrace's premiership aspirations, but it was the great touch of Anthony McQueen that landed first points for the Magpies, with this effort finished by Edward Smith. West's first points weren't so spectacular, but Ben Donaldson's effort was high on determination. After having early trouble just holding onto the ball, Gavin Cook showed what he could do when it stuck, setting up Wayne March as West charged into the lead. It could have been more had Brendan McKell not ruined Trent Watson's effort. Soon after half-time, it looked a costly miss as Brendan Doolan gave the Magpies the lead once again. But halfback Troy Wright found himself in the right place, not once, but twice, with his double handing the home side a 10-point buffer. A Watson try killed off any Terrace comeback as West set up a major semi-final against old rivals and premiers Lakes United.
For the past 20 years, Associate Professor Alastair Sim has been examining cell proteins at Newcastle University. Proteins are different amino acid sequences and are programmed by DNA. When a cell becomes diseased, proteins can change form and increase or decrease in number. Exactly why some proteins do this remains a mystery. What Professor Sim and 35 other researchers are trying to do is unravel the secrets of changing cells by identifying proteins.
Well, what we're interested in doing is understanding what changes occur in proteins in diseased states. And part of that is understanding what proteins are present in normal states.
In a major step forward for the researchers, they've won a grant for just under $500,000 from the Wellcome Trust UK charity. It will be spent on a new machine, which, unlike the existing technology, can analyse hundreds of proteins in minutes instead of hours or days.
It allows us to do things at a much lower level, so it's a higher sensitivity. We can detect extremely small amounts of proteins, and that's important for disease because there can be very subtle changes going on.
By better understanding proteins, scientists are creating new and improved drugs for treating diseases such as cancer and hope ultimately one day to find a cure. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Look, I just can't believe that the people of Maitland have to put up with trains that are 40 and 50 years old, that are long past their use-by date.
Release of this footage by the construction union has put the nation's largest demolition job into the spotlight. The Australian Workers' Union agrees last October's removal of the ore unloading bridge looks dramatic, although it also proves safety systems on site are working.
Some hidden structural defects that missed everyone occurred the collapse, but even as a result of the horrific collapse, the systems that were in place in regard to walk health and safety prevented anyone from getting a scratch, let alone any injury or worse.
A fact backed by minimal workplace injuries, with the site clearance now half completed.
200,000 man-hours or so at this stage, one lost time injury of a minor nature and 2 medical treated injuries of a minor nature.
Kevin Marr says criticism is the last thing workers need ahead of the blast furnaces and steelmaking section being demolished.
They're the two areas that are the biggest, the most complicated, and because that's the case, people's minds have got to be on the job and shouldn't be distracted.
The job is expected to begin once HMS Nottingham leaves Newcastle. Gary Blair, NBN News.
They're quickly picking up all the tricks of the trade. Today it was aquaculture, caring for hundreds of yabbies. At East Maitland Public School, students are part of a Life Skills Society. It provides employment so they can earn econodollars.
It's taking them beyond pen and paper.
Econodollars can be used to sublet a pet mouse for a week or even Snowflake the rabbit. Students are also involved in repackaging and selling local honey. Tomorrow their life skills will be put to the test. They'll travel to Sydney to trade with other schools. One of those also making the trip will be Marks Point Public School. Its currency is the mark. Students have made their own products for markets, selling everything from pet rocks to relaxing bath salts.
Last week we sold out of the candles and soaps pretty quick and we had only a few bath salts left.
At Woolwarra Public School, the focus is on the environment. Lunchtimes are spent gardening so the vegetables can be sold. Some students are so enthusiastic they've joined local land care groups, while others are hoping it'll lead to bigger things.
I want to be a farmer. Yeah, cropping and cattle I want to do.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
In the Hunter Vineyards, weddings have become big business.
Wine tourism to our area overall is worth about $400 million a year. And whilst we haven't done specific figures on the wedding market, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a good 10% of that, so around $40 million.
Now, for the first time, a guide showing where couples can say I do has been launched by the Hunter Valley Wine Country Tourist Group. It will be distributed nationally in conjunction with a new general tourist guide. The next stage, marketing to Korean and Japanese couples.
I mean, we all need hairdressers and makeup artists and celebrants, but they'll hire in a whole fleet of cars. They'll often even hire the best man and the bridesmaids.
Meantime, the nation's top noses have assembled to judge the 2002 and older Hunter vintages. Over 3 days, 18 judges are tasting close to 1,000 wines. Heavy rain before the last harvest has affected quantity and some quality.
As in all difficult years, you'll find good wines, but you've got to look for them, got to search for them. Whereas in years like 98 and 2000, a lot of very good wines made and the search wasn't quite as strenuous.
Len Evans, the chairman of judges at the Hunter Valley Wine Show, is this year retiring from the post. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
The flowing water at the memorial is designed to signify peace, a reminder of why Australians risk their lives in conflicts across the globe. But for the 380 Swansea men and women who served in armed forces, it's also a place where their sacrifice has been immortalised. Today marked the dedication of the new memorial, built earlier this year at a cost of $150,000. It was used for the Anzac Day service, but today's ceremony marked it as a sacred site, given the blessings of 3 holy men. Meantime, at the Shortland Wetland Centre, it's been a weekend dedicated to all things native. A wide variety of species, including the always popular grevilleas and wattle, were shown off at their spectacular best as part of the annual Wildflower Show. Arranged by the Australian Plant Society's Newcastle group, the event provided amateur gardeners with information on natives, organisers keen to point out their role in providing food and shelter for the country's wildlife. Colin Robinson, NBN News.
Just 4 days ago, Newcastle held down fourth spot on the ladder, but the demise of the Bulldogs, followed by their big win against Brisbane and the Warriors' loss, has catapulted them into top spot.
Yeah, it was a strange day or a couple of days.
Not so the performance of Parsons against Brisbane. After the Broncos pledged that they would dominate, it was Newcastle who held court. While son Billy got most attention today, Parsons has worked hard to ensure his performances remain high each week.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be a bit more consistent this year, and it's probably worked out that way. I'll probably put one of my more consistent sort of years in ever this year, and I've just got to keep doing that, especially for the next 6 weeks.
His front row teammate Josh Perry was just as strong against Brisbane, and given their new status as leaders, team goals have quickly been reassessed with 2 rounds remaining.
One win, we're definitely in the top 2, but if we win the next 2, we've got the minor premiership, and I don't think we've ever done that, so that's certainly a goal for us now for sure.
Injured hooker Danny Badiris trained well today, but it's not clear if he'll return this weekend against the Panthers. Jim Callanan, NBN News. At 16, Casey Stoner has already been earmarked for big things. Just weeks ago, he was the youngest ever rider to earn World Championship points for the 250cc class. Overnight in the Czech Republic, the kid from Kurri Kurri began from 20th on the grid, but was quick to make his mark. As others came unstuck, Stoner moved his Aprilia through the pack with ease. 15 places in all as the youngster eventually crossed in 5th place. Marco Melandri won the race. At a few less horsepower, Phoenix North was just as quick to rack up a big score against Maitland in Premier Hockey League. David Willett's goal was followed 1 minute later by Dean Ball. It was just the start. Alan Charlton netted the first of his 3 in the 25th minute. It was on the half hour that North continued the rout, with a flurry of goals seeing them double a 3-0 lead in as many minutes. Nathan Wilkinson's shot making it 6-0. In other games, West just home, while South won its 19th consecutive match in beating the Tigers, and the entrants down Gosford in the local derby on the Central Coast. And Newcastle was overlooked as a new home for a National League netball side. Netball Australia opted to axe the Adelaide Ravens and include only one new side to its 8-team competition. It was hoped the Sandpipers licence would be relocated to Newcastle. However, they'll remain based in Sydney, with an ACT, Australian Institute of Sport side, the new team in the competition. After a long hit out this morning, players were back in the gym later in the day as their intense pre-season schedule continues. Socceroo Milan Blagojevic knows all about it. The midfielder enjoyed only a limited off-season given his representative commitments.
Oh, look, not too bad. It was a little bit rushed in the end, getting into the Socceroo squad and going away, and we had a fairly intense 3 weeks there. And then I had a couple of weeks off and back into it now.
He can't afford not to, with competition for places already highlighted during the first trial match, which yielded 12 goals.
We've got a lot of depth this year, and the players are all itching to get a starting berth, so it's going to be an interesting season.
Kiwi skipper Chris Zoricic continues his recovery from groin surgery along with captain Matt Bingley, both doubtful for the season opener in 3 weeks. For everyone else, it's all systems go.
Crookie and Gazza know that. We were put through our paces this morning, and the training schedule looks like it's pretty intense as well, leading up to the first game against South Melbourne.
That continues with a match against NBN Soccer League side Western on Wednesday night up in the Coalfields. Meanwhile, it's the local league's night of nights, with the major season awards announced this evening. Edgeworth expected to feature heavily.
The system has worked, with tragic accidents among new riders and motorcyclists in general dropping dramatically. But as with any regimen, fine-tuning always has its benefits, and the RTA has responded to overtures from the Motor Traders Association to allow a greater variety of bikes to be used by new riders. After all, some people make a little bike top-heavy.
Like, it'd be a bit silly sort of seeing myself and the likes of Matt Parsons and blokes like that riding around on the 250. So yeah, it's a great rule change and sort of makes it a lot easier for blokes like us to go and get our L's, which is good.
But there is another advantage in the new regulation. With learners and P-platers now able to ride bigger bikes to start with, progressing to the largest models later on is not such a big step.
If you were riding a 400, for example, on your L's, and then when you finished your L's and got a 750, it isn't much of a jump, and so you can adapt fairly quickly, whereas jumping from a 250 to a 750 or 1000 was a big jump.
The RTA has produced a list of motorcycles approved for learners and P-platers covering engines up to 660cc, but restricted to a power-to-weight ratio of 150 kilowatts per tonne.
It was a much more relaxed affair for Brodie McGilvery today when she was reignited with ambulance officers Phil Moore and Sam Johansson. Things were a little different though on Friday morning when Brodie went into labour and had to be taken to hospital by ambulance. Baby Ethan had other ideas.
20 minutes into the trip, she told us that she was about to give birth, and soon after she did. Phil and I just assisted Brodie.
For Sam Johansson, it was the first time he had helped deliver a baby, his nerves showing through.
A touch. Not too bad, but yeah. Had an experienced officer with me.
Baby Ethan joins big brother Blair, who is 17 months old. Mum well and truly has her hands now full with both boys.
Yeah, she's very happy with them. She was...
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.